Every afternoon, Rahim, an old tailor with kind eyes and rough, work-worn hands, sat quietly behind his sewing machine. His little shop, nestled in a corner near the local school, was filled with neatly hung school uniforms, stacks of folded fabric, and the soft hum of thread passing through cloth. It wasn't a fancy place, but it was enough for him, a man who lived a simple life, stitching clothes and watching the world go by. One day, as the school bell rang in the distance and children poured out onto the street, Rahim noticed a small figure standing outside his shop. A little boy. He was barefoot, his clothes torn and faded, hair messy, and eyes wide with something between curiosity and sadness. He wasn't like the other kids rushing home. He didn't laugh or run. He just stood still. The boy didn't beg. He didn't speak. Day after day, he simply stood at the same spot, quietly gazing at the uniforms hanging in the display window. Like he was imagining himself wearing one, or perhaps remembering a time when he did. Rahim noticed the boy's presence every day now. The old man would look up from his sewing machine, expecting him. It became a silent routine, the boy standing outside, and Rahim watching from within. Neither spoke a word. There was something hauntingly gentle about the way the boy stared at those uniforms. Rahim could sense that this child wasn't just looking at clothes. He was looking at hope. At a chance. At something he believed he would never have. And though Rahim didn't know the boy's name, or where he came from, something in his heart began to stir, a quiet whisper urging him to do something. One quiet afternoon, as the sun cast a warm glow on the narrow street outside his shop, Rahim set down his measuring tape and finally stood up. He had watched the boy linger outside his window for days now, silent and motionless. There was something about his stillness, his quiet eyes, that Rahim couldn't ignore anymore. With gentle steps, he walked to the doorway and called out softly, "Do you want to go to school?" The boy flinched slightly, startled. He didn't reply at first, his eyes dropped to the ground, uncertain and shy. But after a long pause, he gave the faintest nod. It wasn't bold or eager, just a slow movement that spoke more than words could ever say. Rahim smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. "Come in," he said warmly, holding the door open. The boy stepped inside hesitantly, like he wasn't sure he was allowed. Rahim led him to a stool and began to measure him, shoulders, chest, arms, waist. He worked with care, treating the boy no different than any other paying customer. He pulled out fresh fabric, neatly cut it, and soon handed the boy a crisp new school uniform. Socks followed. Then a pair of small, sturdy shoes. Not once did the boy speak. He simply held the clothes close to his chest, his grip tight and trembling. But when he looked up at Rahim, his eyes glistened with silent gratitude. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. Rahim didn't need to hear, "Thank you." Because sometimes, kindness doesn't need an answer. Sometimes, the look in a child's eyes says more than 1,000 words ever could. A few months passed, and just as Rahim began to wonder if he'd ever see that boy again, the small bell above his shop door rang softly. He looked up from his sewing machine and saw a familiar face, the same boy, only now a little taller, a little stronger, his clothes still worn but his posture more confident. He walked in quietly, holding on to the memory of kindness he had once received. Rahim didn't ask any questions. He didn't ask where the boy had been, how school was going, or if he needed help. Instead, he simply reached for his measuring tape, smiled, and got to work. Once again, he stitched a new school uniform, handed over a fresh pair of socks, and placed another set of shoes beside them, all without asking for a single coin. From that day forward, the visits continued. Every few months, the boy would return, always a little more grown, always a little more hopeful. And every time, Rahim would welcome him with the same quiet compassion. It became a silent ritual between them, one built on trust, not words. Others in the neighborhood began to notice. Some rolled their eyes. Shopkeepers and passers-by scoffed openly. "You're wasting your time," they said. "You're wasting your money on a street kid who'll never change." But Rahim never argued. He would just smile, keep sewing, and respond calmly. Maybe this uniform will change his life. And if it doesn't, it still changed mine. Because Rahim didn't see a beggar or a lost cause. He saw a boy with potential, a soul that simply needed someone to believe in him. And Rahim had chosen to be that someone. Quietly. Consistently. Kindly. Years passed like pages turning in an old, forgotten book. Rahim, once quick with a needle and steady with his hands, now struggled to thread it. His back ached more often, his eyes blurred the stitches, and the once steady stream of customers had slowed to a quiet trickle. Children still needed uniforms, but newer shops had opened. Flashier, cheaper, faster. His little shop, once filled with the sounds of scissors, sewing machines, and school chatter, had grown silent. The walls felt heavier, the air still. Even the cheerful bell on the door rarely rang anymore. Rahim had accepted the change with grace, but a quiet loneliness had crept in. One gray evening, under a sky heavy with clouds, he folded his last piece of cloth. Slowly, with tired hands, he began to pack up. He dusted off the counters, unplugged his sewing machine, and gathered the few remaining uniforms that had no owners. He stood in the doorway one last time, taking it all in, the memories, the laughter of students past, the silent moments of kindness shared. Then he bent down, reached for the shutter, and began to pull it closed. Just as the metal groaned and rolled halfway down, the quiet street was broken by the sound of a car engine. A sleek black car came to a gentle stop right in front of his shop. Rahim paused. The door of the car opened slowly, and a man in a crisp white coat stepped out, tall, confident, yet strangely familiar. Rahim squinted, unsure. The man walked closer. There was something in his eyes. A glimmer of recognition. A reflection of a story Rahim had almost forgotten. But which had never truly ended. The man stepped forward, dressed in a crisp white doctor's coat, with a calm presence and eyes full of emotion. Rahim, still holding the shutter halfway down, stared at him, confused at first, then slowly, something clicked. The posture, the eyes, the quiet gentleness, it was him. The boy. Only now, he was grown. Strong. Confident. A man. With tears glistening in his eyes, the young man smiled and spoke softly, "Do you remember me?" Rahim didn't answer right away. He was too overwhelmed. But his heart already knew. "You gave me uniforms," the man continued. "When no one even looked at me. When I was invisible. You saw me. You helped me, again and again, quietly, without asking for anything." He reached into his coat pocket and handed Rahim a plain white envelope and a single key. "This is for you," he said, voice trembling. "A new shop. Bigger, brighter, fully paid. A gift, from the child you once believed in." Rahim's hands shook as he took the envelope. His old fingers brushed over the key, and in that moment, the years seemed to melt away. All the laughter, the quiet visits, the sacrifices, it all rushed back like a wave. He didn't say a word. His throat tightened. His eyes filled with tears. That tiny act of kindness he'd shown so long ago had returned, in the form of a changed life. A boy who had become a healer. A forgotten child who had come back not with empty hands, but with a full heart. And as the wind gently stirred the edges of the street, Rahim stood there in silence, moved beyond words. Sometimes, the smallest stitches of kindness can hold together someone's entire future.